a recovered angry person. That's our guest, Ilene Dillon. Now, her quest has been very practical. It's to help herself, clients, and audiences to really understand and work powerfully with emotions. Now, Ilene's been doing this a long time. She is in her number 8 decade of her life. And guess what? She's blowing and going. She's writing, speaking, coaching, and she also is a full-time RVer roaming North America with her little dog, Pi. Welcome. Pi's not here today, but I'll extend a welcome to him anyway. And welcome, Ilene. Great to see you today, Ilene.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here again. I always enjoy talking with you, Jody.
So, I know. I like that camaraderie. I feel like we could just talk all day and it would be meaningful to talk. It's not just chatter and filling up air. And that's one thing I really
agreed
about you.
Mm-hmm.
How are you living in the energy of your legacy now?
How am I living in it? I work with the emotions the way I say. I set boundaries for myself to make sure that my life is the way I want to. And this morning, I thought of another thing that I do that I learned from a woman named Laura Langemeyer. I say yes to whatever comes along. And that's how I got into the RV, for example. Clients came and showed me their new RV, and my husband had died not so long before. And I went, I think I'd like to do that. And so I said yes.
So saying yes is a lot to that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. When I first got into the RV, I was in my, about 73, 74. And I realized that I was getting older and that there would be some limitations maybe to my life now that I hadn't really thought about before. And I thought to myself, how do I want the end of my life to be? And it occurred to me that the image that I got was a baseball game, for goodness sake, that my position was that I was on third base and I had to run home. And I thought to myself, well, there are 2 ways that I know of that you can go into home. You can go sliding on your face or you can go in standing up. And I said, which way do I want to do it? And I said, I want to go in standing up. And what that means to me is that I need to keep living my life. I need to keep engaging with life the way I have previously and maybe even more. And that includes saying yes to whatever comes along. I used to be shy, and then I realized somebody pointed out to me that shyness is an extreme form of self-absorption, that we are busy. When we're shy, we're busy wondering what other people are thinking about us. And they're not. They're busy wondering what we're thinking about them. And so I realized that people want energy or they want attention, and that brings them energy. So I started experimenting. I started it at a party one time when I was younger and more attractive, and I just paid attention to a man that came into the party. The party was packed. Paid attention to 3 different men. And in those days in California, many years ago, I got 3 invitations to go home with these guys.
Wow.
And all I did was pay attention to them. And I mean, just look up at them. That was it. And that really taught me that, engaging people is not difficult. They just want attention. And I can always find something like I can say, I really love that color of blue that you're wearing, and which is true. And it's a place where we can talk to one another. Now, let me get to loneliness. We tend to think that since emotions are my area and there's a whole system, we tend to think that loneliness comes from not having enough people in our lives. I disagree with that totally. Emotions are energy. So the explanation for loneliness is an energy explanation. And the message, every emotion brings us a message. The message of loneliness is you have more energy going out than coming in, which could also be translated to you're not loving yourself enough, right? And so now that I know that, you can't ever get rid of emotions because they're energy and you can't create it or destroy it. But I know that I can take loneliness that feels like this and bring it down to this size in my life by bringing energy in. And the most effective way to do that is by doing something I have a talent for doing or something I love doing. It just straightens me out. So when I'm on the road in the RV, I can feel lonely at times, but then I say, okay, what would I like to do to bring some energy into me? And it's gone in 5 minutes.
I love that, because I know that sometimes people talk about single people, married, whatever, and think about being lonely. And when you're talking about the loneliness, there were times I felt very lonely in my marriage. There's no question about that. Even surrounded by people. And one of the things that I notice is that can be a motivator just to get out and meet people. And like you say, maybe they're just as scared as you are or something. And the other thing I know that I do before I go into a situation, because I can be introverted, even though I seem extroverted, I can be also very shy. I know I can say, okay, I ask my higher power to let me be a channel of thy love and thy power and thy way of life.
Oh, that's nice.
And then I feel more grounded when I'm going in there. And then I could say, because then when I ask them questions, I could say, well, I really am interested, and not just kind of for conversation, and hopefully add to it.
See, what you're doing there when you ask to be a channel is you're bringing love into yourself. Because to be a channel, you have to love yourself enough to be a channel. And that's another message that I've been putting out a lot lately. We have learned to live our lives from the outside in instead of from the inside out. If I want to have love in my life, for example, I think I need to go find somebody. But in reality, the best way to have someone in my life who loves me is to start by loving myself. Then I fill myself up with love. I have love extra to give over, and our world operates as a mirror. So the love I have in me gets reflected back to me by everybody who it shows up in my life. And so that's another focus for my work is, okay, something happens. I get upset about something. What can I change in myself? How can I heal myself? How can I find a way to love myself or to channel, like you're talking about, which is to be of service, and service certainly straightens a whole lot of things out for us. And my life goes better. And the other thing, when I'm teaching all this stuff, I was very practical. I was trying to get when I first started learning about emotions, I had a toddler child. I was going back to graduate school for my master's degree. I was newly divorcing, and I was living in a home my husband and I had just bought, which had 22 fruit trees and an acre of land. And so I was a busy person. And I didn't want to keep going back and visiting all this stuff over and over again. I wanted to be able to handle something and then move on. And that's the joy of what I have discovered when I described my progress as I learned I was a very angry person. Then I became a recovering angry person. And now I'm willing to claim recovered angry person. And that smile that you have, and I appreciate that you're appreciating me, but most people laugh when I say that. And I've come to understand it, at least in part, is stimulated by the fact that we don't even think about the possibility of recovering from being angry. It's just not part of our lexicon.
Don't you get angry, though, just from time to time?
Certainly not like I used to.
And not like you used to, but
no, this is interesting. Learning about emotions. I used to have big ups and downs. I don't have that anymore. And part of it is because I cultivate awareness. So as soon as I notice that I am irritated by something, or I'm frustrated, or I might have an angry thought, I acknowledge it, feel it, and work with it. And it moves through me. And most of the time, I don't even have to share it with anybody else. that's part of what happens with anger and this living from the outside in. If I get angry in the regular everyday world, not my world personally, I'm going to tell you, let's say you do something and I feel angry toward you. I'm going to say, Jody made me angry. Well, that's not true at all.
Mm-mm.
The cause of anger, of all angers, it's a bunch of shoulds, things that we think should happen and should not happen that we carry around inside of ourselves. And you're just stimulating me to notice the shoulds that are inside of me. But I would normally come to you and say, Jody, if you would change this and stop talking to me this way or that way, then I won't keep getting angry. Well, it doesn't work. What I need to do is go into myself and say, what do I need to learn here? What am I trying to teach myself? What do I need to change in myself? I can still ask you if I want you to make a change. I could ask you, say, to speak more kindly to me, but I can't demand it of you. You get a choice about what you do or you don't. But before I even ask you, I'm going to tell you, this is what I've discovered for myself, and this is how I'm going to change. And here's what I ask for from you. And I recognize you don't have to do that, but it is what I would like.
So it's more that you recognize it in yourself and that you get kind of the centering so that when and if you need to face the person who you're involved with, that you have clear boundaries, but also ask them what possibly they could do differently if they are open to it. And they may not be. And either way, that's okay, is what I'm hearing. So it's kind of a win-win situation, so to speak.
Yes. And the background of this is that I have over the years learned to look at the earth as a big giant school. And every time we have an experience, and with an experience, emotions come, it's an opportunity for us to learn something. So rather than, oh, this is terrible, I have to endure this, I'm having a bad day, all that sort of stuff, I go, oh, here's another lesson. What would I have to believe in order to have this occur? What can I learn from this? And I embrace that learning. I say yes to it right away. And I do the learning and it's done. I'm over. And that particular theme or issue doesn't have to come up again. I'm done with it. As soon as we learn our lesson, we move on.
Yeah. And sometimes I think I've learned my lesson. And the same situation might come up again, different people or something similar to it. And
Right.
Either A, it said, I need to look at it a little bit deeper, or B, I'm really not quite done with it. I've heard of the people that talk about, you go to some sort of peaceful outing or whatever, and they're all peaceful and connected to their higher power or whatever, and get in a car and they're in traffic and they're ready to swear at the guy that tries to cut him off. And, it's kind of funny in a way to me. And it's also, that reminds me of how we can learn all the time, because I know that my driving habits have actually changed. And I'm sure in California, I can tell you in Houston, there's a lot of challenges on the road. And sometimes when the people, they cut in front or something, if they're like almost cutting me off, then I'm concerned and I'll honk. At the same time, I often think, well, are they in that much of a rush? Is it that, we're all going to get there at some point. And I've learned to say, okay, well, I'll let them in. I know people that would be, I'm not going to let them in, just I'll show them a lesson or something. I'm like, you're in a car, you're all driving cars. And it reminds me of just how what you're talking about, of how when we're plugged in to ourselves, to our centering, that things may not bother us as much. And we may not have to make a point with these strangers that we may never see again.
Right. They don't. And I really have had a lot, as traveling around in my RV, I've had a lot of opportunity to practice those kinds of things. And my phrase that I say, if somebody cuts in front of me and I notice I'm annoyed, I go, I forgot, you own this road.
Well, I got to tell you something. There was a fellow once that, I don't know, he claimed he gave me the finger, whatever it was. Well, he did something ugly. And then we're at a stoplight. And I put down my window and I said to him, I said, I am so sorry. I really didn't see. And I kept on apologizing. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. And then he was like, so nice. I said, are you sure? Because I feel, and I thought, I really am I didn't see you. I wouldn't, all this kind of stuff. And the guy was like, please, don't even think about it. Have a good day. And like that, he changed. And I think sometimes if we, first he went from this very kind of vulgar, kind of really aggressive stance to, oh my God, have a nice day and shut up and stop telling me that you're sorry already. Because I thought I didn't.
What you were also doing was taking responsibility for your actions. And most people don't do that. Mm-hmm. And people are so surprised when somebody actually takes responsibility that it does elicit more willingness to forgive. Yeah, and by the way, responsibility is one of the building blocks of self-esteem. So when we do take responsibility, we feel better inside of ourselves also.
How do you interpret responsibility? What does that mean to you?
Well, I start way back. Baseline is that each person is individually responsible for his or her own life here on the planet. And that means whoever comes into our life, whoever we affect, whatever we talk about, whatever, we have choice about like what I concentrate on, for example. I was this morning, I mentioned this before the show, I was this morning concentrating on communicating, and my phone rang, and it was somebody that I met 6-7 months ago who butt dialed me. And I knew that she was a very interesting person who's also psychic. And I thought, maybe God is telling me I need to talk to her. So I called her back. I missed the call, but I called her back and I said, I think God must want us to talk today. So I'm calling you back. If you agree, return my call. And she did. And we ended up having this fabulous conversation about anger. And one of the things she talked about, she's a hairdresser and a Hispanic woman who lives in the valley near McAllen, Texas. But she's incredibly wise, and And she said, I keep telling people who sit in my chair that that people put their garbage on them when they were little. And it's like that it took root. And all their life, these vines have been growing out of them, and it's messing up their lives. And they need to go deep inside of themselves and find where those vines start and cut them down. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a fantastic piece of information for me.
That's really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were speaking, I noticed your shirt. You're talking about roots and everything, and it looks to me like they're flowers or something connected to. And I thought about the roots that you were talking about.
I said yes to go on a trip to Vietnam last year in 2023 and bought this. This is a silk blouse from Vietnam. Yeah.
What an experience.
That I paid $10 for, by the way.
That's not bad.
Nope.
What do you think was the greatest thing you learned from that trip?
Wow. I think I learned more. I mean, I had wonderful experiences, but the thing that made the biggest impact on me had to do with man's inhumanity to man. We visited the Hanoi Hilton, for example, where John McCain was held prisoner. We went to the killing fields where people were taken in to beautiful music and then killed. I went to a rat museum where they bring in rats from Africa and train them to find landmines that are there's still millions of landmines along the border of Thailand and Vietnam and Cambodia. And that we Oh, and then I went to a museum where was an exhibit on Agent Orange that just ruined people for generations. And so I was really impressed with if we are not filling ourselves with love, how far afield our ability to hurt one another can go.
I'm surprised that they even let you see it.
I was impressed because it is a communist government there, but I thought they did. They talked about Americans being affected with Agent Orange and Vietnamese, for example, in that display, and I thought they did a good job.
But the killing fields too, and that they even allowed you to. I'm surprised that they would have that because of that was their government that was killing all the people. So that was.
Well, there's another thing. So a lot of people on our trip, it was an organized trip, were concerned. You know, the Vietnamese were our enemies, and we were enemies to them, and yet they were so incredibly kind and nice and hospitable and caring with us anyway when we went. And when some people asked them, they said, it's more important to forgive and let go and have life now than to live in the past.
That's a lesson for all of us.
Yeah. And we might mention that right now in history is the time for all of us to turn loose of our past, whatever it is, to get conscious of what's inside of us, the anger, the seeds that have been planted, and get over past hurts and forgive people and embrace life going forward. One of my favorite phrases is one that I came to myself. I used it as a sign-off on my radio show. Pay attention not to what you want to overcome, but to what you want to become.
I was thinking, beautiful. That is it. Please share a little bit more with our listeners, what you can offer them.
Well, I'm doing a series for the next 2.5 years. I'm doing a series of classes on different emotions. First of all, let me back up. I have a book, Emotions in Motion, Mastering Life's Built-in Navigation System, that's on Amazon under Ilene Dillon. And secondly, I'm offering these classes. I'm in the middle of, or actually I'm on the last week this week of realigning with anger. And we're using the word realigning because we've lost our understanding, or we haven't, I don't know if it was ever developed in this way before, but we've lost our understanding about emotions. We've got emotions 24/7, 365. We might even feel them in utero, and we don't know what they're for, and we don't know how to work with them, and we let them tyrannize us instead of us being in charge. So now I'm teaching a class on realigning with anger. The next one is realigning with fear. The next one is realigning with loneliness. And in the meantime, I'm getting my infrastructure ready and also making videos on that I can put on YouTube. And in the meantime, 1 day a week, I work with individual coaching clients also, which I love to do. So I'm very grateful. You had raised a question about what were some of my favorite phrases. And I thought, what if I created a list? So I've come up with 9 of my favorite phrases, and I've annotated them so a person can understand why they're important. And then recently I got connected with a team of people in the Philippines, and one of the women is clearly an artist. And I gave her this list thinking it would come out on 2 pieces of paper. It's on 10 sheets with flowers like this all around it. And it's just beautiful. And it's free for anybody who writes me, Ilene at Emotional Pro. That's like professional pro.com, and just puts the word sayings in the subject line. I'll send it to you.
And that's the word sayings, SAYINGS. Is that what you said? And we will also have that in the text so that everybody can get in touch with Ilene. And please, that sounds like something that's really great, and it's free too. Count me in on that.
I had so much fun doing it. I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you so much. Is there anything else? I don't want to miss anything here.
Well, Jody, you and I have had conversations. We could talk for
I love it.
hours. Of course, there's
Fun.
plenty more.
There is. Of course, like I said the last time, you got to come back, you come back again. But it really is. It's thank you for sharing some of your day with us because you've really uplifted mine.
Oh, thank
Very
you.
much.
It's been my pleasure. You've uplifted mine too. It's fun to talk about. I love talking about this stuff. It's been such a gift to me, and I want that gift to be in everybody's life who wants it.
And thank you for passing that love on to others.